Get ready to get your questions answered by financial advisors. Learn how to put more money back in your pockets regardless of where you're starting your financial journey with your host, Hannah Mitria. Welcome back, everybody, to the Virtual U.S. Financial Advisor podcast. I'm super excited to have Dr. April Murdaugh here with us. Today, Dr. April Murdaugh is the CEO of Women to Women Finance and host of Becoming a Financially Confident Woman podcast. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And we're definitely going to talk about, women in finance and just how to be more financially secure, more confident, since that really is your specialty. But before we jump into that side of it, share a little bit about you and your background and how you decided to be, a doctor in finance, essentially.
Awesome. Well, yeah, my background is I've been a woman who's lost everything 3 times in her life. I've had a lot of ups and downs. I've been widowed, I've been divorced, a single parent, and finances eluded me. I avoided it. I struggled with it because I always say there's one or two reasons. Either you have an income or spending problem. And I had an income problem for a majority of my life. And so that really made it tough to manage money. Plus, I've been taught, and so, the challenges of life made it really more challenging with this just the lack of education and support, resources. And so I started doing this because I started educating women, doing seminars in my community just because I felt like I learned better when I taught. And that it just kind of evolved, and I became an advisor in the industry and decided I'd focus on women because of all the statistics. We live longer, and we make less, and we're in and out of the workforce. So because those were my experiences, I wanted a firm that would be able to cater to women and give them the encouragement, support, empowerment with no judgment. So that's how I ended up here.
Awesome. Yeah. So a ton of things, and things keep going through my mind as we're talking about it. So I really love this podcast because it sparks ideas. But, there isn't a ton, at least there wasn't before. I know women are definitely coming into the industry more now, thankfully. But, if you even look at 5 years ago, I can't really think of any, really oh, I am because we have, all these men that are very predominant in the financial industry. So I love having women coming up because it makes it so that it's more comfortable for us to go to somebody too, because we want to go to somebody that's going to relate to what we're going through. And, even though that our society has grown so much, we still have differences in how, we handle money, how we receive money. There's still paying differences. And so all those things that happen, I think having more women in finance like you are makes it a place that's more comfortable for other women to be able to make sure that they're creating that financial future that they're looking for.
Yeah, and that's you bring up a good point. That there were no women in the industry, not a lot. It's like something less than 10% of us, and even less that are minority women. And women now are starting businesses at a really rapid rate. Minorities are becoming the first generation millionaires, and so teaching them how to handle that money is important. And so you bring up a very, very good point. We need more of us in this business, and hopefully, I'm the pace setter for one of them.
Yeah, I think you definitely will be. So I'm super excited to see as it unfolds. Yeah. But let's talk about jumping into the finance side of it. You've dealt with your ups and downs of, taking control of your finances, essentially. So what are those steps whenever you're in a place where you've never been taught how to take control of your finances, or how to solve the problem of income versus spending? So what are some of those first steps that you take when you're working with a client?
Yeah, well, the first step I say all people should take is education. I grew up in a household where my parents instilled, education was the key to unlocking the doors. And so when you're younger, you don't really realize that. But then when all the stuff in life started happening to me, the only way that I could figure a way out was learning. How can I learn what people who are where I want to be do? And so I started kind of studying down, well, what did successful women do to handle their money, and what books and resources and classes. And so I think the first step is education from a client perspective. As far as from from a business owner or firm owner perspective, the first step that I take with my clients is educating them. I want them to feel no shame. I want them to feel comfortable asking me questions that they probably wouldn't ask talk to their friends about, or another advisor about, who has these preconceived ideas as to how they should come to them. A lot of times women are made to feel like, well, you need to get your stuff together, and you can't see an advisor before you have XXX in place. And a lot of women do very well, and they just don't know how to do that. And so there's shame and they avoid it. So the first step is educating them, finding out what they know, where they want to be. One of my main questions is, what is important about money to you?
Mhm.
And from there, it's the springboard of how we can work together and how I can help them to achieve those objectives and reach that whole what is ultimately important about money to me. And so I would say for both sides, education is key.
Yeah, I think really understanding why it's important, I think can help you overcome because I think a lot of us are scared of money. And I hear a lot of, in the business world specifically, people hit those plateaus of they can't make above a certain income. And a lot of the time it's because we're so afraid of that money that we get to a point where we're like, oh crap, what do we do now? And so we end up going back steps before we go forward steps. And it's really being able to overcome maybe some of the fears of money that we've had growing up. And I think it all really goes back to that education part of it. Do you have any other strategies for like kind of overcoming those fears? Because, we don't talk about money as women nearly as often as men do.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think one of them is having someone to help you, a non judgmental accountability partner that says, hey, I'm going to walk you through this
Mhm.
process. To get to where you want to be, we can do this together. I think one of the things for women when it comes to women in finances, women are relational, we're emotional beings, and we like to be heard, we like to communicate, and we don't want to feel talked down to or condescending. And I think letting them know that, hey, okay, you're not where you want to be. I'm not sure I meet anyone who truly is. Now we're going to start from where we are.
Mhm.
You know better, you do better. And so we're going to get you the education. We're going to walk you through. I'll be your accountability partner. I'll be your personal CFO to kind of help you navigate this maze of finances. And there's no shame, there's no stupid questions. And I think making them feel safe first is important. And that then the guards come down because we're vulnerable. This is a vulnerable topic. I tell them all the time, it's like going to the GYN. I mean, how many times do you change your GYN?
Mhm.
And I need you to be sure that this is the place for you, because we're going to be disrobing a lot, but we
Mhm.
can't get to where we want to be until we expose and open up and say, okay, where are we? So I think the strategies that I use is understanding, non judgmental, no shame, listening, and just helping them navigate and empowering them. Women lack financial confidence because you're right, they don't teach us how to do that. We don't have those conversations. And so the whole goal is when you feel confident in doing something, you attack it, you don't avoid it. And so once we build up your education and you become confident, then we can start the journey together.
Yeah, I think that was a perfect like analogy between like the gyno and the financial advisor. We share that same dread whenever we go to either one. It's like, oh crap,
Hmm.
like what are they gonna say? What are they gonna do? Like it's uncomfortable. So it's like perfect analogy right there. So once they have that education, they've kind of found their why. What are those next steps to, taking control, setting some goals, and like prioritizing things?
Yeah, so one of the first steps after that is kind of assessing. Okay, so where are we relative to where you want to be? Where are you right now?
Mhm.
And then once we figure out where you are, then I literally put together like a net worth statement, balance sheet, income statement, just to let them know, okay, this is where you are.
Mhm.
And then these are the things that we'll need to do step by step to get you where you want to be. So you want to get over here, you want this level of retirement, this level of savings. Well, based on that, then I literally create a step by step, like, okay, we're going to do this first, and we're
Mhm.
going to do this second. And they then have a roadmap that both of us reference together at least every quarter to make sure that we're on track to where they want to be. So it is literally creating a plan that has, like I said, a step by step, almost like a to-do list. Okay, we're going to do this first and this second. I think women appreciate that because it's very clear, it's not ambiguous, it's not filled with financial jargon and terminology, and that makes it easier for them to see that it's possible. So that is typically the process that we go through. Once I create the plan and give them we go over the step by step process, we go over, and then we start working together to implement. Okay, step one, we need to start investing, or we need to start working on eliminating debt. So let's gather our debt, and this is the first thing we're going to do. Literally grade school level communication as far as how you can get to where you want to be.
Yeah, and, like, one thing that's, like, coming up because you mentioned at the beginning, like, it's an income versus a spending problem. It's one of the 2 always,
Yes.
and I think a lot of us always think it's an income problem, like, we don't have the income. However, I know high net worth individuals and women and men, deal with the same exact problem that
Mhm.
not high net worth individuals are dealing with because we're conditioned or not conditioned, but it's more common that as you make more money, you just spend more money. And so, what are some of those steps when you're working with a client and saying, "Hey, it's not an income problem. It's actually a
Right.
spending problem." Like, you kind of mentioned the debt payoff. What are some of the things that really help them see that to be able to make those adjustments and shifts?
That's a good question. So one of the first things that I do is I collect data, and one of the most important pieces of data is their bank statements.
Mhm,
So I gather all of their bank statements from every bank they have, and I itemize it. I categorize it. Where is the money actually going?
mhm,
And then when we meet again, I say, okay, well, you're spending $1,600 eating out. It's right here on your bank statement the last 2 months. This is a pattern. So if we average this out, this is where the money is going. You're cash apping or you're Venmoing your kids all the time. This is where the money is going. So then, or your grocery bill. Typically, people have an issue with eating out,
mhm,
groceries, and entertainment. And then a lot of people, high net worth, at the average middle American, they live above their means, and they don't really understand that they should be spending on things like housing and cars and their lifestyle. And you're right. So as they begin to earn more income, they begin to increase their lifestyle. And my whole premise is, to get them to think about a debt-free lifestyle. Like I had close your eyes and think about what it would feel like to not have credit card payments, what it would feel like not to have car payments, but enough money saved to be able to respond to those things. So putting it in their face by
mhm,
showing them where their money is going via their bank statements and any other statements is key. Then people tend to like it jolts them awake, and
mhm,
I can tell them, listen, if you redirect this money here, you don't have an income problem. You do fine. You just need to stop spending in these areas. Or your housing is way above where
mhm,
it should be. You're spending 50, 60% of your income on housing. Tell me why. I've got to have the big house because now I make six figures. Well, how realistic is that
mhm,
if you can't maintain or pay your bills or respond to an emergency? So people then literally wake up, and then we start there going, okay, so what are we going to budget? Let's try to decrease these expenses that you're out of whack by 30%. Yeah, let's
mhm,
try that. So I will sometimes then say, and let's not use a debit card. Let's get 30% less out of the bank and you use that. Let's shut down all debit card and credit card usage, and let's see how we can live on cash for a while. And it really freaks people out
oh, yeah.
because the card is something you don't feel it. You don't feel the pain. It's just a swipe. But if you have cash, and you realize that you're dumping $1,600 a month out in cash, eating out, it has a lot more pain. It's a lot more effective to see. So depending on the client, I will instruct them to do things like that, to begin that process of facing where they are. And they usually freak out and they like, oh crap, and they start, I need your help. I need your help. And then that's what starts to, because I'm like, then this is all the money you're losing,
Mhm.
the cost benefit. This is the opportunity cost of not making this money go work for you, and then that they wake up. Typically, smart women realize that. The other thing I will do is I'll try to get the whole family on board. So I have a couple now I'm working with, and they have 5 children, and
Mhm.
most of them are adults. They bring in, $250,000 in the household, but it's gone. I said, well, we need to sit down and have a conversation. You have X amount of debt. Your children need to understand what the purpose is, and they need to get jobs. They're 16, they're 17. And so I will try to bring the whole family into the process if necessary to get them to realize that we can't keep this lifestyle up.
Mhm.
It's not sustainable.
Yeah, I love that you bring the whole family into it. So my husband's from Nepal, so we're very much a generational household. Like
Mhm,
my father lives with us, our daughter lives with us, and it just makes sense because like why go live somewhere else and then have to pay all your own bills again and all the other things
mhm,
again. And so
mhm,
I love that you bring the whole family in there. I think that's really cool. And I think, I've seen more families, even, more American families be more generational too. And it's just
mhm.
becoming a more common thing, especially with the inflation, the cost of living being so much more dramatic than it was maybe, 15, 20 years ago. The other thing you mentioned was cash in there. And like cash is
Mhm.
so powerful. Like when we get cash, like we can hold on to it for months. When that money's in our bank account, it is gone in hours.
Yep, yep. Cash makes you rethink a lot. I try to use cash for my groceries because then it's like I question, do I really need it? It makes me, step back a little bit because, if you don't have cash and you're swiping, you don't feel the impact of the
Yeah.
money going out of your hand. So
Mhm. You're definitely
that's
calculating it more too, because the last thing you wanna do is get to a checkout and not have enough cash to make that thing. You're like, "Oh, crap.
mhm,
There's not
mhm,
money here."
mhm,
The other thing I was kinda thinking, like, it's January, and in January, people have set big audacious goals, and I hear a lot of goals of, no spend months where they don't spend
mhm.
money. And, it kinda trends a lot, especially in January. And how do you feel about those kind of months and how people set
Yeah,
those?
so I don't know that a no spin month, honestly, is. I'm sure people who have had success with it. I
Mhm,
don't know that it's entirely realistic.
mhm,
I've done things like no spend weekend. So let's just say, from Friday to Monday, we're gonna do things that's free,
mhm,
and encouraging people to do that kind of stuff. The whole month, it just depends. I guess if they're saying, on recreation and entertainment kind of stuff, that may be okay. It's almost like a fast, if you
mhm,
will. But typically, my clients I don't have that level of success with that. I may put out there, let's no spend weekend, like no going out to eat this weekend. Why don't you guys cook your meals at home and prepare? My phase, for instance, I keep the Sabbath. So Saturday, Friday sunset to Saturday, like the whole idea is I don't go out and buy food or, I make everything at home. It's all about family and home. And so I try to encourage clients to perhaps do that, but I don't know for the whole month. I
mhm,
think for me, this year, what I really have been pushing is no debt. New year, no debt. I
mhm,
have a series of workshops that will be starting on Sunday. And the whole objective is to get people to focus on, hey, let's get out of this bondage of debt so that we can have the lifestyle that we want and we can have the resources and generational stuff. So I'm probably more focused there than saying no spend month. But I've
mhm.
seen it on social media and I've not met anybody that's done it with the level of success that I know.
Yeah. I know, like, me and my husband were even talking about it. We're like, "Well, we have these things coming up already." Like, we already have stuff planned. So it's impossible to do a no spend month when,
Yeah.
you already have stuff set that was set months ago. So you'd
Mhm.
almost have to plan a whole month. That'd be a no spend.
Yeah, like you need like a month before to plan the entire month, and then it really also depends on spend on what. Like you could say maybe I'm not going to go out to eat for the month. Maybe something like that. I'm
Like
not
a no
gonna.
Amazon month. That'd probably be
Right.
good for a lot of us right
Right.
now.
That might be, yes, that might be a great idea.
Mhm.
Something like that. But no spend month. I guess I just need to know more about what that looks like.
Mm, and so kind of mentioned planning there. So let's, look at planning our financial future. We've kind of set our goals. We are understanding, where our income and spend is looking at. And so now how do we start planning for the future long term?
Well, that's a good question. So again, that's usually taking everything that we've done and then really examining, okay, what is important about money to you? Because that really determines how you live your future, what your future looks like. If security, if stability, saving is important to you, if being able to give money away is important to you, then that usually is the first step to how to create a plan. Also, what does your financial lifestyle look like? Do you plan on, I suppose, do you plan on staying in your current home? Are you going to downsize? Are you going to upsize? Are you going to be a nomad? I have people that say, I want to buy an RV and sell my house when I retire. Okay, so how can we plan for that? So we create a plan that sells the house, that buys the RV. I have people that say, I want to live 6 months in Belize and 6 months in the United States. Okay, so what does that look like? What is the cost of living in Belize? What is the health care in Belize? How can we make sure that you're able to do that? Can you earn income? How much is it going to cost? Do you need six figures in retirement to live? Or would you be okay making $50,000 if we get you to a place of debt freedom and that sort of thing? So typically we'll build a plan out based on what's important about money to them and then what their retirement lifestyle, like what is that dream retirement lifestyle for you? And
Mhm.
then we'll craft, and of course, this is fluid. So it's a living, breathing document. So every year we update it. This year you may be like, I want to live in Belize. And then next time, stuff starts happening, political unrest, you're like, oh no, I don't think I want to do that.
Mhm.
So we change that as it goes. But in that plan is then a step by step breakdown of what to do to achieve the income that you need to live the lifestyle that you want to live. And then what age?
Mhm.
Some people come with ages that sometimes are unrealistic. Like, I want to retire at 55, but I'm 40 and I haven't really done anything. And then I have folks that come in and they have been doing things for a while and they're like, I want to retire at 62. Well, I don't want to fully retire. I just want to stop doing what I'm doing. So understanding what retirement looks like to them is
Mhm.
important, because retirement for everyone is not just sitting in a rocking chair or traveling. It may be that I want to volunteer or I want to do what I do and work part time.
Mhm.
So really digging into what's important about money, retirement, and what that lifestyle looks like helps me to be able to then assist them in crafting a plan from a financial perspective.
Yeah. No, there's so much into it too. Just like parts you don't think about, like, the age, what you actually want to do afterwards, because it isn't just sitting in a rocking chair. I don't know anybody that retires the way that our grandparents retired, because our lives are so much longer. There's so much more we want to do, and there's so many more possibilities to do those things. Like my dad he's 62 right now, and he's nowhere near retiring or sitting in a rocking chair for the rest of his
Hmm.
life. Like he
Yeah.
has so much more that he wants to explore and travel and do. So the idea of, me being in my 30s, even thinking of retiring seems crazy. So when is that age to think about it though, because you can't wait till you're, in your 50s to think about retirement. So when do you start thinking about it?
Yeah, to be honest, like 16. I know that sounds crazy, but in my house, it's like I try to have, well, with one of my kids, I've done it, but I try to have this rule that, you need to be thinking about it as soon as you get your first job.
Mhm,
And the way to do it is to begin setting money aside for it. And once you get in the habit of doing that, you don't miss it. And
mhm,
it's like a muscle. You keep lifting the weight, you keep so one of the things that I encourage is, at age 16, if you have young people, make them open a Roth IRA. If they're working, they need to put 50 bucks away.
mhm,
They start to see that grow and they're like, oh wow, like I'm buying mutual funds, I'm buying stocks, this is cool. And then, I'll let them know, okay, if we continue in this vein, when you get 45 or you get 55, you'll have $1 million.
mhm,
And they're like, whoa. So the younger, the better. I think when you're young, you can mold people to where the way you want them to be. You can really mold them. But when you get someone 40, 35, they're in the thick of life, bills have hit them, they're adulting 102 now, and they're like, how in the world is this possible? I'm trying to live my life because, 100% of my income I need to live. But if you start younger and you show them that you can live on 80% of your income or less, teaching them how to do that then is going to be very important. Of course, it doesn't work that way. 90% of people don't come to me like that. But that is the ideal,
mhm.
way to start is to think about now,
Yeah.
16.
Alright, awesome. I've told my daughter as soon as she gets her job, she needs to save that money. So, and then you mentioned you're doing a debt class that's coming up. So
Mhm.
can you share a little bit more about that and the dates and, the cost of
Yeah,
it?
sure. So yeah, I'm doing a budgeting and debt elimination series. The key to a good debt elimination plan is a budget. And so budget, people think it's so restrictive. It's not. It's very freeing because you get the opportunity to tell your money where to go. And so they start Sunday night, this Sunday, January 7th at 7 p.m. virtually. And I have three workshops every Sunday for the next 3 Sundays from 7 to 8, the webinar series. You will get a interactive budget spreadsheet, and you'll also get an interactive debt elimination plan calculator so that you can manipulate on your own. But we're going to talk about how to begin that process. The cost is normally $597, but it's $197 for January. So it is on Eventbrite, and I can send you the link for anyone who might want to register. If they don't get a chance to come,
Mhm.
and it will be recorded, and so they can purchase the recording as well.
All right, perfect. That's my next question, if they could get the recording or not. And so we'll make
Mhm.
sure to put that in our show notes for anybody that is interested in joining, or how long, like, so if they don't hear this podcast till February, March, are they able to come back and still purchase it to get
They
the
can still,
goodies?
the recordings will still be available for them, and the resources as well.
All right, awesome. Well, I've loved having you on, Dr. April. Is there anything else that you'd like to share about like just confidence and finances, especially for women?
Yeah, just do it. I think avoiding it, try your best not to avoid it. I would say, find an accountability partner, a good friend that you can be vulnerable with, a good girlfriend to talk about this stuff with so that you kind of can approach it together. Sometimes we work better in packs. And then start interviewing people like me. Interview us. Like, make sure that we're a good fit from a values perspective, from a synergistic perspective, and that we can really help you achieve your objectives. So those would be the things that I would encourage women to do.
All right, awesome. And we'll have all of your information in the show notes. So anybody that's listening that wants to reach out, make sure to click the links below to, reach out, schedule that interview and see what makes sense for you. And thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to share this.
Yeah, definitely. And listen to her podcast as well, Becoming a Financially Confident Woman. So make sure you go and listen to Dr. April Murdaugh's podcast to really become more confident in finances. And thank you for joining me. So,
All right, you're welcome. Thank you for having me.
thank you for joining us this week on the Virtual U.S. Financial Advisor podcast. Subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or via RSS so you'll never miss an episode. We'd love a rating on iTunes, or better yet, tell a friend about the show, which will help us grow as well. If you want to learn from any of our financial advisors, head over to our website, virtualusfinancialadvisor.com, to learn more about each financial advisor and connect with them personally. Be sure to tune in next week to get more advice from the expert financial advisors. See you on the next episode.